The Spotlight, shining a light on podcasts and videos that have caught our attention.
Hi and welcome to The Spotlight. I'm Jen Spiker and today I'm highlighting a brand new podcast series that's been added to the Vision app. Sunburnt Souls is hosted by Ps Dave Quak, who speaks to a different guest on each episode. In this recent episode of the podcast, Dave is interviewing Zac Morrison, exploring his journey with anxiety and how his newfound intimacy with Jesus has caused a noticeable change in his life, including his mental health.
The Spotlight with Jen Spiker.
I know sometimes in Christian circles we can look condescendingly upon people who have a feelings-based faith, and I guess there's issues if that's all it's based on, but in the initial stages, what else have you got to work with?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the leading in the Holy Spirit. It's the tactile ways he introduces himself to us.
Yeah, and that's just the only way I would have...
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
And it's also along with your love languages as well. I think he knows how to draw us to himself. Panic attacks, have you had them before? Was that your first one? Or?
No, I had panic attacks before. So as I was saying before with my shoulder, I was in so much pain with my shoulder all the time. I couldn't lift it past my waist. Otherwise it would dislocate. I had to sleep in a sling and it was just always in pain. And I had to go get an MRI and I had never got one before. And I just went in thinking, I'll just get in and get this done. And then I sat on there, went in, and then all of a sudden I just started going, and a feeling I'd never had before. And then I'm like, oh, let me out. Like they give you a button to push and you're like, let me out.
Yeah.
And they come, they go, are you okay? And I'm like, I am fine. I'm just like, I don't know why. That just happened. Okay, put me back in. And I tried 3 more times, and each time I went in there, I just started having these panic attacks.
Yeah, okay.
And they said, there's another MRI machine in a different location. It's a bit bigger. It has, it's cut off at the end. You might feel a bit better in that one. So I didn't realize I was claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And because I'd never been in a situation like that before. And so they send me to this other place the next day. But that 24-hour period, I was having continuous panic attacks for an entire 24 hours leading up to it because of the thinking about getting into it.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the only time I've ever had them.
That's very interesting. Yeah. It's almost like your body had kept the score, like it was, in a heightened state.
Yeah.
Just ready to react, But
I just didn't sleep for that whole time.
Oh, no, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And having physical trauma as well, triggering emotional panic attacks and mental health things, that's such a complicated intersection there as well, because when the physicals, if your shoulder's continually dislocating, you're in a constant state of readiness, constant state of stress, and okay, so you had some panic attacks. What about other things? Have you had any anxiety or anything in your life? Or?
Yeah, so I don't really know how long I've had it for, because I've always put myself in a situation where if something makes me feel anxious, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long it's been an issue for, but having older children and having the life I have now, I'm constantly put into situations where, was constantly put into situations where I couldn't just say no and I couldn't just not go. And
so you were forced to face the things you'd normally avoid.
Yeah. So, and then all of a sudden these things I was getting really anxious all the time and feeling all this anxiousness. And I'm really grateful for my wife, because she noticed it, pushed me to see someone about it and to face it, really. And it really made a change in that regard, because I didn't actually really know I had it. I just know I didn't want to do it. Yeah. So I was just like, I don't want to do that.
So what does facing it look like for you? What did that process look like?
Initially it was seeing someone, so it was like seeing a therapist. Yeah. And because when I'd separated from my wife originally, I was having a lot of trouble with coping with not seeing my kids all the time. Yeah. And I just thought I was sad, and I don't get to see them every day. I don't get to pick them up from school every day. I thought I was just really sad. And I just went to the doctors about it, I'm just feeling like this and feeling like that. And then it's take this test. I think you have anxiety and depression. Yeah. Here's some pills you can take for it. and go see someone. And this was just before I'd met Ash, and this is just before COVID hit. I was like, I'll give these depression pills a go, sort of thing. And I took one, and it just made me feel worse.
Yeah.
And I just, after taking it 2 times, just decided like I'm not going to do it anymore.
Okay.
I had some people go like, hey, I don't think you actually really have depression. I feel like the people you're surrounded with are making you feel that way.
Okay.
And those are hard to get off. They're hard to use. Like, and they're just like, think about it or, give it a go. And then I just decided to go without it and see someone and go see a therapist. And then I was meant to see a therapist the day COVID happened.
Okay.
And I decided not to on the day because
the world went
the bar was shutting down, and we were like, before 12 o'clock, we were like, let's get rid of all of this food and the booze we can. That's going to go off because we're not going to be able to get rid of it. So we did like a $2 beer day between 10 and 12.
Yeah,
we just had 2 hours where everyone just came in and just bought up the place.
Drink and be merry.
Yeah. So I just decided not to go that day.
Okay, so you never went to the therapist. Did you go later?
Yeah, so because it just was causing a big problem in our relationship because I would just shut down.
Okay.
Because I'm so used to just shutting down when things get hard, and the people in my life prior they didn't really care, to be honest. Like they just, you'd shut down and they'd be like, okay, you're shutting down. And then that's the end of the conversation. No one talks about it. Whereas my wife's like really emotionally intelligent, and she's kind of like, no, we can't, this is not how we're doing it. We can't have a relationship where you just shut down and we don't talk about this and nothing happens. And we're both left with this feeling of, hurt or invalidation and things like that. So, I did eventually go see someone, and I saw one person in Brisbane, which I didn't really get along with. She wasn't really going in the direction I felt that I needed help with, and then I went to a couple of sessions, and then I didn't go for a while, and then it was the same issue. Like I don't want to do this because it makes me feel anxious. Yeah, and same thing. My wife was really, really good and patient, and she's just like, our relationship's not going to work if you don't seek help in some sort of way. So I went and saw someone else who went real specific on the anxiety and how to deal with it. And the problem was I didn't really know what was causing it. Yeah. So I didn't know why I was shutting down and why I was feeling anxious. And the idea from the therapist was just like, slowly increase the things that make you anxious from, a 1 to a 10. Yeah. Let's start with 1s and we'll slowly move to 10s. And then it was just like, and then as you kind of progress through that, you kind of become aware of when that anxious feeling's coming. Okay. And I've got like a mindset of like, if I know it's happening, I can stop it. So like I can go, this is making me feel anxious. Oh, that's why it's making me feel anxious. It's the previous thing that made me feel anxious, not this. Okay. So it was like arguing and things like that, or like getting into, I know that from previous arguments with previous people, that's just, there were like narcissistic people who would just like shut you down and make you feel horrible anytime you brought up an issue where you're always wrong. Yeah. So I knew I'm always wrong. I can't have this discussion because I'm wrong. So that's where your mindset was at. Yeah. Every time there's an argument, might as well shut down because I'm wrong anyway. Okay. Yeah. And they help. So when you say they like go from 1 to 10, that's increasing the levels of things that you would consider anxiety creating. Yeah. So they would go like, she'd just say, right now, what's making, what would be a mildly anxious thing, like going to, starting a conversation with a stranger. Yeah. So, I used to not be able to go into rooms and have not well thought out conversation with people. So like if I was entering a party, I would have to know who was there and who can I talk to about what and what's their interests. And then I would spend the whole conversation just getting them to talk.
Yeah.
And just trying to get them to fill the void of conversation, like to just so I could not have to speak and not have to think, because it would make me so anxious. So I'd go in and like, who's there? This is what's happening. Like, yep, they like football. That's it. Did you see the game? Like, this is this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it was strangers, it was like trying to figure out what they liked so that they could talk and things like that. So
It's tough, man.
yeah, but it'd be like a 1 was that conversation, and then a 10 might be getting into an argument with your spouse or bringing up an issue that's hurt your feelings or something like that, and that might be a 10. And then those 10s slowly become 8s and then 5s, and you deal with it, and it doesn't go away, is what she said. She was like, it doesn't ever go away, but you can manage it.
Okay.
And
you found that helpful?
yeah, and being aware of it helps you not to shut down, not to not feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good, because you don't want to shut down, but I can understand the attraction of that. You know, sometimes those situations, even some of the ones you've just already mentioned, it's a nightmare. Going into a room full of strangers trying to meet people.
Yeah.
Some people, you know, the extreme extroverts find it great, which I did in my early 20s, but now, like I get the anxiety creating atmosphere that can be.
And I moved from Brisbane to the Gold Coast to be with my wife, and everyone, like, she's friends with everyone down here. So I had to meet a whole new group of people. I had to go to church every week, where there's not always the same people there every week. And it was just like this constant trigger of anxiety every time I was like in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And it would just be, like I said, thinking about what can I talk about?
Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah.
And even churches, you know, it's hard to find, I mean, obviously we've got Christ in common, but it's hard to find, you know, your people, and churches can accidentally be cliquey, and all of that stuff can happen. So with managing anxiety, you've never gone on medication other than trying that first time and going, no, this isn't for me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you have to really pay attention to things like diet and exercise and that sort of thing, or does that play a part with you?
It's always when you're healthy, you feel better. It's always the case. And my wife and I do like, you know, healthy eating plans and things like that every now and then.
Yeah.
We generally do, like, we like to go out and eat, and we like our junk food like everyone, but we tend to try and stick to a healthy diet. And being a carpenter, my daily routine is exercise. Yeah. So I feel like that I wouldn't know what it's like to not have it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because with anxiety management, there has to be some sort of I assume there has to be some sort of physical outlet. So for me, with my anxiety, I am on an SSRI, which is a medication. But when I tried to get off that, it was like all hell broke loose in my mind. So we're all on different, you know, we all manage it differently.
On the Spotlight, we've been listening to part of Zac Morrison's story from a recent episode of Sunburnt Souls. We'll hear more of this conversation next time, but you can listen to this full episode right now in the Vision app. Find it by tapping the podcast tab and searching for Sunburnt Souls. This episode with Zac is titled Tattoos, Anxiety and Intimacy with Jesus. My name is Jen Spiker. Join me next time on The Spotlight as we hear more of Zac's story and the strategies that he uses to manage anxiety.
For more great podcasts and videos like the one featured today, check out vision.org.au or the free Vision app.